And hello, welcome to the IATEFL live show, broadcasting live from the IATEFL Conference here in Edinburgh. I cannot even begin to describe how energetic, how dynamic the conference is. It's absolutely incredible. I'm going to have to tell you this. During these past 3-4 days that I've been here, I keep saying to people, hello, how are you? We keep hugging each other. It's been absolutely brilliant. It feels like home, and we hope that you get this feeling as well. Of course, thank you very much for joining us from all over the world, because yesterday I was truly excited to see people from Peru, from Germany, from Italy, from Argentina, from Costa Rica, from Cuba. We are international because this is what IATEFL is, an international community. So with the IATEFL live shows, we are trying to bring a little bit of the vibe from the conference here for you. So whether you're here in Edinburgh or whether you're watching us from home, we are live for you. Join our community. Please feel free to participate during the interviews. We would love to have your ideas, and we would love to hear your voices. Well, digitally a little bit, but still, we would love to hear your voices. Now, while I'm here, I can tell you that this right here is the exhibition hall that we will show you later, because my absolutely inspiring team, Anka and Nikki, have been going around today, around the venue. They've been taking videos, they've been talking to people, and we will be showing you all today. So join us, grab a nice drink, whatever drink you want, and we are ready to show you something more from Edinburgh, because this is not only a journey for English language teachers, but it's also a cultural journey. So Anka here is going to show you a video from Edinburgh made by Nikki. Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the show.
Did you know Arthur's Seat is an extinct volcano? This peak rises majestically above Edinburgh, offering panoramic views of the city. A hike to the summit is a favourite activity for locals and tourists alike, suitable for all skill levels. Enjoy the fresh air, unique geological foundations, and diverse wildlife along the way. Whether you're an avid hiker or just looking for a great photo op, Arthur's Seat is a must-see in Edinburgh. Hello, good afternoon. I'm joined by our first guest of the afternoon. It's the lovely Anna Leverve. How are you, Anna?
I'm well, thanks, Nikki. How are you?
I'm well too. It's lovely to see you. Is this your first conference?
It is. This is my first IATEFL, so
wow,
it's a little overwhelming, I think, in a really good way. Lots of people. So far I've really enjoyed it. A lot to think about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh goodness. And you're actually speaking this year, aren't you?
I am.
This is amazing. Hang on. Let me start from the beginning. Before you tell us what you're talking about, tell us where you work and what you do.
Okay, so originally I'm from Australia. I've been living in Munich for about 11 years, and I work at the University of Munich. I'm a researcher, but I'm a teacher educator first and foremost. And I'm working on my PhD, and I love what I do. I feel very lucky.
That's what more do you want?
That's right.
That's the dream, isn't it? To love what you do. Brilliant. Okay. And today you're talking about mindfulness to an extent, and this is your PhD research, isn't it? Do you want, without giving the game away for your talk, which is at 5 p.m. this afternoon, if anybody is around, please come and see Anna. Tell us a little bit, what can the audience expect to see? Where did the research come from?
So I think the research really came from some work that I did in my master's thesis, and I looked at a picture book author called Bob Graham, and I found in his work that he was very mindful in the way that he saw the world. So he noticed things and he took simple things and elevated them to be special. And I found when I read his books that then I started to see the world in that way. Then I discovered the work of Ellen Langer, who's a socio-cognitive psychologist, and her mindfulness is not meditative mindfulness, but more a way of seeing the world. And I connected this to the work of Bob Graham. And once I finished my master's thesis, I decided I wanted to take this topic further, and that's what I've done. So I look at a mindful approach to multimodal text for English language learners. And really that's about noticing, slowing down, and resisting that temptation to rush to closure and to judge too quickly.
Anna, is anyone else doing this type of research? Because it's not something that was on my radar until I met you 2 years ago in Malta, and you told me about it. But are there other people doing this too?
Look, there are other people who are looking at Langer's mindfulness, but in a much more technical way, I would say. So I'm looking at it more in a holistic way. So there was some work done maybe 20, 25 years ago by some researchers who are now part of the Harvard Graduate School of Education, Project Zero thinking routines. And I can see some evidence in that work of Langer, but they didn't really take the work any further. So that's where I'm picking up and seeing what I can do and encouraging people to slow down, which is very opposite to what's happening, I think, in the world. People are pushing and getting more efficient, but I'm saying let's slow down, let's have another look, let's really think about this. And I think there's a lot of value there. Creativity, critical thinking, empathy, intercultural understanding. So the benefits are myriad.
Well, that's absolutely fantastic. What more do you want for the learners? And how's your research going? Have you finished this now and you're writing up, or are you still in the collecting your data phase?
So I finished collecting my data. I had a research project last summer semester in Munich with pre-service teachers, and I'm looking at that data now. These pre-service teachers learnt this method and they took this, what they learned, into a classroom and taught some pupils. And I have data from both of them. So that's what I'm looking at. And hopefully I can make some sense of that, whatever you're supposed to do in a PhD, and then write everything up in the next year or so. I'm really hoping that I will have that title over my head at some stage soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely best of luck with that. I'm sure that you will. Well, this is fantastic. And are you using this mindfulness in your own teaching? I mean, I don't know if you teach language or if you're just in teacher education, but do you use this with your students?
Look, absolutely. I am really much more in teacher education. So teaching pedagogy, teaching students how to teach English. But it's something I think that's inherent in me, and I've been doing it for a long time. I think my mum taught me years ago to notice and slow down. And of course, I teach in that way, and I encourage my students to take another look and to really tune in to what they're doing instead of being so quick to move on, which I think a lot of us are conditioned to do in today's fast-paced world.
Certainly in today's age, we are very, very quick indeed. What might the slowing down and noticing look like with, for example, your trainees?
Well, I guess it's, for example, if we were looking at an image, and I use images a lot. I mean, I say multimodal text, but they all have a visual component. So if we were looking at using an image with students, I would encourage my students to think about ways that they could frame an activity which encouraged their own students to slow down. So I think often in English language education we use pictures as a prompt. They might be a warmer, so what's in the picture, which is a very standard question, but instead of just asking what's in the picture, we might use some conditional language and say what could be there, what might be there, to make us think about what some of the other options might be. So instead of focusing on this is definitely happening, what could or might be happening. So teaching my pre-service teachers in my class these kinds of approaches and hoping that they learn them as learners and then they pass them on to the students that they ultimately be teaching.
Yeah, absolutely. And this then allows everyone, I suppose, to go just a bit deeper.
Absolutely.
Than the superficial
Yeah.
glossing over something.
Yeah, and I think in today's job market, we're asking young people to have a lot of skills, and creativity and flexibility, cognitive flexibility are some of those skills. And we can teach this in school. And I don't like the word practice or train, but we're practicing or training these kinds of approaches so they become second nature rather than always, like the infinite scroll, move on, and we're not actually paying attention to what we're seeing.
And is it difficult to get your trainees to do this? Because certainly this morning we were talking about teaching younger learners and how it's becoming more acknowledged that the way they process information and their attention span is slightly shorter. Are you working with Generation Z? And how is it? Is it easy for you to get them to slow down and notice?
Look, I think it takes time, and you can't expect to go from one approach to the next in a breath or in a heartbeat. But the repetition in different ways, in creative ways, in interesting ways, and certainly showing young people what the benefits are of actually going a bit deeper, leaning in, seeing what's there, and resisting judgment, resisting that first initial push and rush to closure. Yeah, and also
it's not easy, hey?
No, it's not easy, but the benefits that come from realizing that we can be so certain in what we think we know that we don't even bother to look further or find out, and that I might have an opinion which is very true to me, and you might have an opinion which is very true to you, but they're actually opposites. But if I come to your side of the table, I realize that that's true for you, even though it's the opposite of what I think. And that builds skills of empathy, social and emotional learning. There's so much there that benefits us outside of education in life as well.
Absolutely. And if anyone's watching at home thinking, I'd like to explore this a little bit more, apart from, are you publishing at the moment, Anna?
I just published an article, a couple of years ago, and it talks really about the work that I did in my master's thesis, but I have been focusing on my PhD. But anyone's welcome to get in contact with me. I'd be happy to share materials, talk you through any of these ideas. Yeah, that would be great.
Oh, that's wonderful. So there you go. Get in touch with Anna if you're thinking mindfulness and slowing down maybe the way that I want to go. Anna, best of luck with your talk. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. Yep. Good luck with the rest of your research. Yep. And thank you for coming to talk to us today.
Thanks, Nikki. It was great fun.
Oh, it's been lovely to have you here. Thank you, Anna.
Hello, welcome to the exhibition centre. So this is our home for the week, and as you can see, we have the couch. This is where the magic happens, and this is where we actually want anyone who's here and that would like to have a chat with us, please come down. This is where we're going to be. So this is our home, and if we go around, as you can see, there are lots and lots of different stands with all of the different publishers and universities and organisations that are working with us to make the world a better place. We're next door to the independent author stand, so if you watched IATEFL Live yesterday, you will have seen Rob chatting to us from there. And moving around, we've got Cambridge and their collaboration space.
Where are you going?
Trinity are there as well. Just all the publishers.
No, the tribunal takes years to summon a case.
And there you have it. There's the exhibition centre. Everyone in one place. Fantastic space that everyone can network, meet and share. Come and see us if you get the chance.
And we're back. And I'm back here with Neil. Neil, we talked last year, but this year you were doing such a fabulous talk that we said we want to see you again. The talk was yesterday. I already heard stories. I now got the confirmation. It was packed. You have conference like this, you never know how many people are going to show
People are
up.
breaking down the door, but one of my friends said, were they breaking down the door to get out or to get in? We did have to send some people away.
Oh, but that's like horrible for those people, but that's also like an ego boost, I imagine.
It was nice that it was full, and it was a small room, but it was nice that it was full. And I recommended to some of them that they went to the other talk today about decoding Scottish English, which was, you know, it's kind of a related topic. And,
Yeah.
and I've just come from that talk now. It's very good.
Because spoiler, Neil gave a talk on Scottish English.
That's right.
For the people who somehow don't know who you are, have forgot since last year, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, so I'm Neil McCutcheon. I mostly do Celta and Delta training. That's my normal role. I've also got a book on task-based learning, so that's my area of interest in terms of methodology. I run a Celta centre and a teacher training centre, and yeah, right now I mostly do kind of management things. And if anyone, if I have the chance to do a face-to-face course, I will always work on it because I miss that, you know.
There is something about teaching that classes getting bigger, our schedules getting fuller, we complain, but if you have to miss it, I think that's worse.
And face-to-face teacher training, I mean, that's
The best.
That's like my calling, you know. I love
and
it.
you had that. You had a full room yesterday. What was the
Yes.
title of your talk?
The title of the talk was Nae Bother, a wee guide to Scottish pronunciation. It wasn't really about methodology. It was really a prawn talk. So Scottish vowels, differences between Scottish English and received pronunciation.
Yeah, because when we teach English, we focus a lot on received pronunciation.
Of course.
How does the Scottish differ from that?
Many ways. I mean, one thing is that there are 3 languages spoken in Scotland.
Really?
At least, actually 4. So, but Gaelic,
Yeah.
Scots, which is its own language, an Anglo-Saxon language like English, and English itself, of course, being the main language. So some words from Scots come into standard English with Scottish speakers.
Yeah.
So that, you know, so like dialect words you could say, but they're actually words from the Scots language. And then there are the phonological things, which are the areas I was talking about. One example, the first one I used was the vowel, the diphthong now.
Now.
In Scottish English, that sounds like no, right? And or even new. It's quite common that people say things like new or doon or oor for now or down or hour. And just yesterday, my wife was in a shop buying a SIM card in Edinburgh, and they said to her, "Are you wanting it? Are you wanting it put in the new? Are you wanting it put in the new?" Something like that. And
what does that mean? Because the Scottish
can you
accent.
understand that?
Do you want me to put it
Like
in?
you're buying a SIM card, so you wanting to put in the new?
I guess. Do you want to put it in now?
That's right.
Yes.
But I think she heard, because she was on the spot, she heard in the know, like I am in the know, and it totally threw her.
Well, but that's the
so I
in
had
the.
to translate.
I also was like, in the new. What's the new?
Yeah.
Is there a new?
Yeah.
Is
And
there
so
a
if
new?
you have if you have one vowel sound that kind of throws you off or makes you think it's another word, you know, then you're in trouble.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I think especially people here will have experienced that there's people that you think you understand, but then you kind of need a second to really place and understand what exactly they said.
And also some of the Scottish vowels don't exist in English, so we there's no difference in Scottish English between like in look or and book and oo as in new. So up here we just have one sound doesn't exist in English, and that is oo, right? So like new books. New books. Instead of new books.
Okay, so instead of new book, you say
new books.
new book.
New books.
New books.
And you make that sound by saying an E, just you put your tongues if you're going to say E, and then round your lips, and it's going to sound like a lovely U sound, which
yeah.
you get that in French and German, but not in standard English.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you had to give someone like me tips, like I learned English, second language learner. I learned English from a lot of like Jane Austen adaptations
Right.
and Doctor Who. So
from
it's
Doctor
a bit
Who.
more, yeah.
Of course, we had a Scottish Doctor Who.
Unfortunately, that was after I got acquainted with the language.
Okay.
So if I wanted to sound more Scottish,
Right.
how would I do that?
Actually, we've had 2 Scottish Doctor Who's, but one of them played at London, right? David Tennant played it as if he came to London.
Yes,
Came from
yes.
London. So if you wanted to understand Scottish English, oh wow! I just came to from a session about that. So this was by Gemma Archer from the University of Strathclyde, and what she was saying was that it was about decoding, but focusing on small words that might cause difficulty and sound changes in a certain context, and focusing very specifically and repetitively on vowels that might sound different, so that her students, could get used to that.
Yeah.
Because one of the things is, if you've got an accommodating speaker, there's going to be some kind of convergence. So they're going to realize that you need help, and they might slow down and enunciate clearly, hopefully not shout at you, but, slowly and clearly. But the problem is when somebody isn't meeting you halfway. Right?
Yeah,
and then they're not giving you any help, and they're just speaking in a very strong accent, using words that you might not be familiar with.
Oh yeah, and I think it's an often heard complaint from teachers and mostly students that when we have listening assignments, that they always put in people with strong accents, because you kind of need to be able to pick them up, but also in real life, usually you help each other out, making sure that understanding each other is a common responsibility and not just mine while you talk or shout at me with your strongest accent.
I mean, one great thing about Scottish English is we do put in the so it's a rhotic variety of English where you can hear that final sound that you said other there. So that is at least there to help students, and so it's there in the spelling, and it's there when you say it. So things like other or other. Yep, other.
Other,
but
and it's
standard
more like
English, RP is other.
Other,
yeah.
And how would the Scottish be?
Yeah, other. So we have one retroflex sound, which sounds like other, a bit like the American sound. Interestingly, women prefer that, so you'll tend to hear that kind of thing from women. Sometimes with men, you'll get a harder sort of tap, sound like something like world, say, world or birth or Edinburgh. Okay, and you'll hear that rather than the you've got a kind of harder.
Especially when you said Edinburgh, there was a really
Edinburgh.
That's like, almost like in Dutch we have a rolling R, like
the rolling R is less common, but that you find that in the Highlands. I was told at school, you got to roll your R's to be Scottish, but actually it's not true. It's quite unusual to hear that.
Okay, so myth debunked here for all of us that have been quoting Braveheart saying that.
Maybe he does that a bit in Braveheart, yeah.
They do, actually, yes. You can take my life, but not my freedom. But that's debunked. That is actually not Scottish then.
He was quite good, actually. I haven't seen the film for years, but I thought, wow, he really worked on his Scottish accent.
Other than the R, which is then obviously not entirely Scottish to have it rolling, how would I sound? Like, can you teach me to sound more Scottish? Can you teach the people at home? What do we need to do?
So if you were in Glasgow, you might say that something was pure dead brilliant, which means very, very good, pure dead brilliant. Right? So try it with me.
Okay, so pure dead brilliant. For all of us on the same page. This is what we're going for.
So listen, brilliant. Try that.
Brilliant.
So the what? Brilliant.
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 Brilliant. Brilliant. Okay.
Brilliant.
Now listen. Pure with that sound.
Yeah, pure.
And make sure you've got the anyway. So very good. Pure.
Pure.
And then with the dead, I want you to make it sound a little bit like dead. So pure dead.
Pure dead.
That's it. Now try pure dead brilliant.
Pure dead brilliant.
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 Oh,
brilliant.
That's it.
Pure dead brilliant.
Brilliant.
I see. I'm doing it wrong again.
Just do the brilliant.
I need to look at you. Then
Pure
I do
dead
it right.
Brilliant.
Pure dead brilliant.
Oh,
I
Is he
can't do it
from
looking at
Glasgow?
you, but I can do
Yeah,
it looking at him.
Sound
It's like the
you're from
Scottish
Glasgow.
influence.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Please try at home if you're
Pure
listening,
dead
if you're doing
Broughton.
this. Pure dead Broughton. What's another one?
Something that my friend said to me. She's also from Glasgow. Scottish saying is, "If it's for you, it'll no go by you."
And again,
Can you
I'm going to
understand
need
that?
subtitles.
Don't worry if I said to you, "Don't worry, if it's for you, it'll no go by you." What am I saying?
If it's furry, it sounded like furry.
If it's for you,
If it's for you,
it
or
won't go by you.
it will.
So like it's meant to be, right? If it's for you, it won't go by you.
If it's for you, it won't go by you.
So
Okay.
this is a nice sort of
Can you say it in Scottish again?
fatalistic Scottish saying. Yeah, listen, I won't teach you to say this. It might take too long. So if it's for you, it'll no go by you.
If it's for you, it'll no go by you.
With the o. If
If
it's
it's
for
for-
you, it'll no go by you.
If it's for you, it will no go by you.
Yeah, you're very good with the no go. So that was perfect. If it's for you, it'll no go by you.
If it's for you, I will. Oh my gosh, I can't do
Try
this.
the last bit.
It will not go by you.
No go by you.
No go by you.
That's it. And the last sound is an oo. So it'll
By
no go
you.
by you.
You.
Yeah, go on. It'll
But
no
it
go by
helps
you.
that we do actually have these sounds in Dutch, which I
Some
think
of the
gives me a
sounds,
bit of a
that's
head
right,
start to some of
that's
you
right.
trying at home.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's what I do, like in answer to your question. The drilling is important, but actually if it was with students, it would just be for receptive understanding. They don't have to sound like they're from Glasgow or Edinburgh. They might do it naturally just by living here, maybe.
I think
But,
there is a thing, right?
You know,
that
that receptively they've got to hear. If they hear for you, it's for you. Yeah.
I think there is a thing that if you're in a certain environment for a while and you hear a certain dialect or a
Yeah.
certain accent, you'll pick it up.
Hopefully, but as Jebba was saying, you know, a lot of students, maybe they're living within their own communities, so they're in a sort of bubble, so they may not be getting as much exposure as they need. You know, to pick it up, they're going to
True.
have to be interacting with local people, and some people have that privilege, you know, and some people don't. So, you know,
Should
it
we
depends.
sound Scottish?
Well, one of the things about Scottish and sort of global English is that some of the sounds travel a bit better than RP sounds. So, for example, O, our version of O,
Yeah.
and A, our version of A, okay, travel the world. So, you know, in West Africa, in South Asia, and other parts of the world, also with foreign language learners, like the people I used to teach in Hungary, you will hear a lot of O and A, like no and day, and you won't hear so much no and day. So some of the diphthongs, some of the English vowels, typical English vowels, don't work so well in kind of world standard English or English as a lingua franca, whereas the Scottish vowels might survive there longer because, well, they're not Scottish vowels, but they're pure vowels and they're, you know, they're easy to make. So yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like I said, I think I have a bit of a head start speaking Dutch because it's sort of similar-ish.
Yes.
That it would be easier if you start, you know, if you're learning English to then.
Well, just say
make
how
those
do you
sounds.
say the ingredient of chocolate, the basic ingredient of chocolate from a plant? How do you say that word?
In English, it's cocoa.
Yeah, exactly. So you're saying cocoa, not cocoa. So nobody says cocoa, right? Unless you know certain
No.
parts of English. But that RP is cocoa, you know. But it's much easier to say cocoa.
It is easier to
Cocoa
say
Pops.
cocoa. Oh yeah, who doesn't love Cocoa Pops? But no RP.
Yeah.
Okay. So
RP is cocoa.
one last Scottish sentence for the people who want to sound Scottish and should then again not learn from Braveheart, but from Neil.
Well, one thing that you should know, everybody, I'm going to pass this on from my father, is that at New Year, when you're singing that wonderful song, Scotland's biggest export to the world, apart from whiskey,
Oh yeah.
is Robert Burns' song, and it is Auld Lang Syne, not Auld Lang Syne. So it's an S sound. It means since, you know, since long ago. So should old acquaintance be forgot and Auld Lang Syne.
Auld Lang Syne.
Syne.
That's a very important one because we do hear that
You hear
everywhere around the world.
You hear Auld Lang Syne a lot.
Oh yeah,
But,
I've even heard
yeah.
shine.
Shine.
That's sign S.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's interesting that that's, I guess, the biggest known Scottish thing in the whole world. And by Robert Burns, who, here's another thing about Robert Burns, he's more popular in Russia, possibly, than in Scotland. So over there, he was seen as a people's poet.
Really? But
The,
he even has its own night here. Like let's not
exactly.
understate his popularity here. He has its own night.
But
but
apparently very popular in Russia after the revolution because he was, working class or people's poet. So and that really surprised me when I was in Russia many years ago. People knew Robert Burns. I was
love that.
blown away. Yeah.
Like you said, export products.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Very nice to talk to you. Hope you have a nice rest of the conference.
You too.
Yeah.
Welcome back. I'm joined by Donald Clark. It's wonderful to have you here.
Nice to be here.
This isn't your first IATEFL by any means, is it?
No, I gave a keynote in Glasgow, not far from here, in 2017.
I remember that conference. Well, the weather wasn't as good as it is
No.
now. It was awful. I remember that. Donald, for anyone who's watching at home, can you tell us a bit about yourself? What's your background? What do you do?
Okay. Well, I'm obviously from Scotland. So this is the TEFL conference, and English is my second language, obviously, being from Scotland. But so that's useful. But really, how did I get here? Really, what's that story? Keep it short. I did a degree in philosophy, PhD in philosophy, unemployable. But I managed to go to an American university where I picked up some programming skills.
Oh, wow.
I like the American system,
Wow.
and came back, bought a computer, and then started businesses. So I've never worked for anybody. I've always been a business guy, entrepreneur by background, and built some big learning technology businesses over the years, and and floated my first one in the stock market and that sort of thing. Learning Pool, who was there at the kitchen table all through that one. We sold that for 200 million in 2021. But I've been really focused wholly and utterly on AI, artificial intelligence, in 2014. That's all I've been doing in learning. Hence being invited to speak at this conference today. And so that's really doing real work, real projects. But I've also written a whole stack of books on it, which have been, on AI and learning, and have been published in China and South Korea and stuff, which is quite nice. Give a lot of talks at conferences, but I'm really a doer. I like real projects and real content.
So what was the path, or what were some of the projects that led you to become, up there with EdTech and AI?
Well, on the AI very specifically, way back when I ran a company called Epic, the one we floated on the stock market, and then I was really quite surprised at how bad teaching was. To be frank, I'd been through it. I've been to an Ivy League, Edinburgh University. The teaching, to be frank, was awful. So I'll be brutal about that. The lecture essay type model. So I then took a deep dive. So I was 150 people working for me. I then started to do a lot of writing and studying of learning theory, and became autodidact really, but picked up all that stuff. Then started doing real projects using learning theory. And the first one was an interviewing skills process thing, where I used what was intelligent tutoring to be personalized. So if you were interviewing me for a job, right, and you asked me, did you go to university? I'd go, well, that's on my CV. That's a stupid question. So the software would keep an eye on it and then personalize it and give you a score, and it would throw you out the interview, or the interviewer would walk out or whatever, and you'd have to go back to the beginning and come back until you had mastered all the skills.
Right.
So intelligent tutoring was a form of AI back in the day. And then the Learning Pool company I worked with, we actually bought an AI company and applied AI, data, all that stuff in learning. So loads of projects I could go through, but you get the idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so when did this start? 2014?
The AI stuff.
Yes.
I mean, I had been involved in one or two projects before that, because in the Ivy League place I went to study in the States was called Dartmouth College, and it's in New Hampshire, and that's where the first major conference on artificial intelligence took place in 1956. So the modern era of AI was founded there by a guy called John McCarthy. Invented the phrase artificial intelligence. He regretted it, by the way. He thought it was a terrible name. But the genie was out the bottle then, and they were involved in lots of projects. So that's where I first came across artificial intelligence. I was 20,
Right.
a long time ago, believe me. Just picked up the AI stuff in America, came back here, bought a home computer. I won't go give you the boring old guy story. Oh, my first computer was a Commodore 64 or something. But the very first thing I ever wrote, it's quite interesting. You're making me think back now. The very first program I wrote was teaching myself Russian.
Okay.
So I was very left wing when I was young. I used to go to the Soviet Union in a thing called Sovskot, and that's another story. My best friend.
I was about to say, I was going to ask you, how did you get? Okay, we're not going to
Yeah,
go there.
my best friend was a major spy for the KGB. They tried to recruit me. This is a whole other discussion.
Okay,
Yeah.
back to AI.
But my first program was to teach myself the Cyrillic alphabet,
Yep.
and then the Russian, and that served me well because in Moscow there was no English. Nobody spoke English. This was the early 80s, and then I said, "Oh, this is amazing! You know, this is quite successful. I managed to write this thing that would teach me a language." And then that was 1980, and then I got really quite interested in AI, personalized tutors, intelligent tutoring, until 2014. Then I started an AI company called Wildfire, and then we did loads of projects. You know, I've been doing that ever since, really. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was a bit of a ramble.
No, absolutely fine. I'm just like mind blown. So if this was already happening back in the 1980s, I mean, where do you see ELT in terms of teaching and AI in the next 3 years, for example?
Well, a good place to start is where are we right now?
Where are we
So
right now?
this is a $38 billion market, and 10 billion of it is apps with AI in it. So it's already a massive portion of the business. Yeah. And when I gave my keynote in 2017, I said AI changes everything. And so I'm here all these years later going, told you so. Not quite, but but I did tell you so. And the truth of the matter is, it's marbled like fat into the meat now, and everything in English is a foreign language.
So it's
everything. And it will only grow, and people really have to accept the fact that this will take jobs, and it will change the landscape of the business. It already has. So the bigger companies here, you're talking about revenues getting up for $1 billion on apps. So let's not imagine this has not happened. It's about to happen. It already has happened. And so you'll see an acceleration in that because the actual progress of AI has become very rapid and exponential. So you now have agency, you have, of course, the big one for language learning, it's multimodality. So we're talking to two human beings looking at each other here, but this could be completely and is simulated in AI by two avatars talking to each other in real time. You could do that right now. So, and language has always needed multimodality because we've been drowning in a sea of text. So all those people out on the floor here who sell textbooks, that's been the problem. Tens of thousands of kids in British schools today learning their language, French, German, Italian, Spanish, but none of them will be able to speak the language because it's too text-based. And so multimodality in linguistics, orality is primary, always has been. Literacy, text is only a very recent thing in our history. We only invented the written language 3,200 BC. It's got a very recent thing, human history. But we've become obsessed by it. So we send our kids off to university, to school at 5. And if they do go to university, they pop out, it takes about 20 years. And all they've done is read, write text and critique text. That's crazy. And that's why they don't learn languages very well in schools. But if you really want to learn a language, you have to immerse yourself, you have to speak. What a surprise. Isn't that surprising?
That's one aspect of it for sure, yes. Yeah.
And actually speech is primary in linguistics. But it's no more than that. You have to speak to people. You have to see people. You have to understand the context. All that's now being simulated by AI. Talking about that this afternoon. Multimodality. There's agency. So all that stuff like building assessments can be done. Oral assessments can be done and assessed by AI now. The building of the assessments, the rubrics in the assessments. So if you broke it down into 3 things, teaching, learning, and assessment, all of those things are starting to be done by AI. And people say, oh, but it won't do this and it won't do that. Be careful with the word never here. Because we have a natural tendency to think that we're exceptional as human beings. The truth of the matter is Copernicus came along and said, we're just a rock going around the sun. That knocked us all sideways. And then Darwin comes along and said, well, you're like a dog, really. You're a bit smarter, but not much. And then we still think we've got, and they all begin with C, don't they? Critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, communication, whatever. That famous old bogus slide, because they're not skills at all, those things. You can't teach them separately, they're domain specific. So we're hanging on to the crown jewels. Oh, critical thinking. This thing will beat you at maths, it'll beat you at Go, it'll beat you at chess, it'll beat you in hundreds of things. It'll beat you in critical logical argument as well. So I think we're trapped by our own grandiose thinking about our exceptionalism. And we've got to be really honest here about what role this technology plays in the future and meaningful lives and so on. So there are downsides to this as well. You know, this is it's both exciting and frightening at the same time. So I think we have to be both careful. But for me, I'm really optimistic because I've seen the world descend into stagnant economies, young people with ridiculous debts and so on, can't get a house. So let's hope that this gives us productivity increases that solve some of those problems.
Okay. So very much normalized in the very near future, basically.
Well, yeah, it is normalized. You might not realize it, but every time you go onto a computer, all your social media is mediated by AI. If you get a spell check with that little red wavy line, you've been using that for years, that's AI. If you use Google, AI.
Yeah, so
if
it's
you use
everywhere.
Google Scholar, it's AI. It is, if you book a flight in EasyJet, it's AI. It's apps. Every single car has it now, sort of lane control and all that stuff. So you live in a world, a cloud of AI it's invisible. That's the thing about this
that's
stuff.
a scary thing, isn't it?
Steam and electricity were sort of highly visible lights. Steam coming out the top of steam engines. This is invisible, but it's there. It's a general technology like electricity and steam. It's like water. It's crept in everywhere in a rising tide. The problem is that institutions, so employers, universities and so on, they are putting the sandbags out all the time to stop the water coming in. The learners and employees are just getting on and using it. So resistance is absolutely futile. It's going to happen. But this is why institutions have got to really get with the program a little bit, because if they don't, they're endangering themselves by becoming redundant and not wholly irrelevant, but more irrelevant than they have been. And you see that in higher education, and 24% English kids are not turning up to schools. Do I really need a GCSE in chemistry? I'm not too sure. Do you need that? I'm not sure I did. I passed it.
It was a long time ago. I don't.
But we have this reverence for text. Middle class people love books. And if your kid's not reading lots of books all the time, then they're not reading a fulfilling life. But I grew up in a council house. We didn't have any books, and no the library of books in my house. I'm a bookish person, but I've got over the idea that it's a necessary condition for a meaningful life. So I think we're living in a different age, a multimodal age, the age of intelligence on tap. That will be an amazing thing for the species.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm getting a bit...
No, it's absolutely fine. I was just thinking, so what is it that students learning a foreign language, what are they, in the age of AI, what is it that they're going to need to learn?
Well, that's good. So ask why. It's always a good question to ask why they're learning a foreign language. Now, English is interesting, the lingua franca of the globe and so on, but they do it by and large to get into education somewhere in another country or work visa. A third one may be just general employment aspirations. Okay, they're the big ones. That's the pool. They're doing it for a reason. They're not doing it out of the love of English necessarily. And that's where all these people make their money. Supposing AI comes out along and wipes out coding in India and all those Indian kids who are learning English because they need to speak to clients. And suppose that goes, because it's going fast. That changes the market. Supposing all those people on the end of telephones in the Philippines and Vietnam that every time we have a customer complaint get to, supposing all those jobs go, because they are going. It changes the whole aspiration of learning English on a massive scale. On the other hand, there may be other reasons why people want to learn English. About even education. We're now living in a world, a tariff nationalist orientated world, where the free flow of students from one country to another will be severely limited. That's happening already. English universities are all in 30 billion debt, every single one, 30 million debt, because they over-egged the Chinese student flow. And that will decrease, of course, because of the political turmoil we're experiencing. So I think there's a downside, which is a lot of your markets will disappear. They'll go out like stars is going out one by one, because AI is taking over all those jobs. Translation's a good example already. On the other hand, new things will emerge where people might still find meaning in life by being aspirational and learning a second language. You got to be careful with this one. So a friend of mine used to run quite a famous language school called Linguaphone. And I always used to be really hugely amused by him. He said, "No, we don't teach languages, Donald. You got this all wrong." I said, "What do you mean? You're on the back of the Sunday Times with your little discs." He said, No. we teach the failing of a language. We teach to middle-class people who are going to Italy on their holidays and think they can learn Italian in 3 weeks. Nobody learns Italian in 3 weeks. He's saying we sell little dreams to people and they put it on the shelf and think they've learned Italian, but they haven't really. Now, so he's not selling language learning at all. And people make a lot of money in language learning, of course, from the, like Coleman's mustard. It sits on the shelf most of the time being unused. And so what happens when the real pool goes, and I was learning English to get a job, because those jobs have gone, that changes this market considerably. And I think if I were running any of these companies, I'm not, I would be doing some risk analysis on all of that right now, so that you don't, like the university, suddenly go, where are the Chinese students? Well, they're not turning up now, are they? So I think there are some AI changes everything. It changes your market. It changes what you have to do to address the market. It changes why we learn, what we learn. It's certainly how we learn. The people here know this, because who doesn't know about the various apps that have been around forever and a day, from Duolingo right through to Memrise, Babbel. You know, they're all there, and there's some free ones that are really incredibly popular now that are full avatar type immersive language learning. So it's here right now, not going away. Resistance is futile.
You heard it here first, folks. I'm still a believer in the human element, and I am hoping that people will still want to learn languages. But I do agree that AI is now normalized, and I don't know what the future holds. It just waits to be seen. But I also think resistance is futile, definitely. Yeah.
I'm glad
okay.
I've convinced you.
Donald, thank you so much for talking to us this afternoon. Enjoy that. Are you with us for the week?
No, unfortunately, no. I've got to go back to Brighton, where I live in the South Coast, tomorrow for doing work things. But it was quite nice. You took me on a wee journey back to my youth there, and how I first got into this. I've forgotten half of that. Yeah, on an end note, so I built this thing called Digital Dawn, which is like a chatbot. So I've written those. I'm 68 years old. I've written a lot over my life. I've blogged for years and written 6 books. I put it all in this Chat GPT thing, and you can ask me questions. But I found myself asking myself questions. This is the weird thing.
Did you know the answers?
Honestly, I no longer know half of this stuff. So I've been recently going, what does Donald think about this? And surprising myself by my own answers, because you tend to forget a lot of this stuff. So I'll leave you on this thought that the future of AI is entirely unpredictable, because I would never, in a million years when I was 20, thought I would build an AI bot where I could be asking myself questions about myself. So who knows where this is going to go?
We'll find out. All right, Donald. Well, with that, thank you very much for talking to us this afternoon.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
All the best.
And I'm back. And I'm back with none other than John Hughes. For people who don't know you, who are you?
So my name's John Hughes. I'm a course book author. I mainly write for National Geographic Learning, and I have written for Oxford University Press. I also run my own training company in supporting teachers write their own materials. So we run some training courses, and we've just self-published a book as well, which is available at this conference.
Busy man. And busy man's proven, because usually people get only one chance to do something at IATEFL. Like you get one chance to do a talk, a plenary, a workshop, a poster, but you can't do both. Except you've been in action twice already.
Well, except if you get to do a pre-conference event.
Yes.
So I was invited to run a workshop on sustainability at the Business English Special Interest Group pre-conference event.
On Monday.
On Monday.
And then you had your talk
on
yesterday.
Tuesday. I'm forgetting what day it is. But yeah, Tuesday. So I had a talk on sustainability in ELT on Tuesday, yes.
Busy week.
For whatever reason, I'm suddenly being asked to talk about sustainability. I mean, I've been working on materials linked to the UN Sustainability Development Goals and integrating them into English language materials. Because ministries of education around the world in lots of different countries now are integrating the 17 Sustainability Development Goals, teachers know about it, and the curriculums want those goals integrated into English language teaching materials. So it's not like I'm a super sort of, I mean, obviously I recycle things properly and all the rest of it.
They didn't ask you for no reason.
But I've done quite a lot of research into it and spent a lot of time thinking about how to integrate it in a kind of meaningful way into materials, yes.
And your talk had, I think, quite an interesting question at the heart. Like, why should we talk about sustainability in our English language classes?
Yeah, the title was Sustainability in ELT. Is it really my job? Because I was looking at how we define it. And I think the question lots of teachers have, and also materials writers, is to say, gosh, do we need another area that we put in our materials? Isn't it enough just to teach English? So the question is, why do I have to integrate topics of sustainability into the classroom as well? I mean, it may be because their ministries of education or curriculums are telling them to do it, but there's also good reasons why they might actually.
Why should we? Because I've been asked that question a couple of times also. And I get it, because I'm quite big on sustainability. And then when you start talking to other English teachers, they say, nice, but my classes are about English. Yeah. And I'm here to teach English, not about sustainability. Why should we talk about sustainability?
Well, I think it depends a little bit on your definition, because most people, if you say what is sustainability, they'll say, well, it's environmental, which is true. It's connected with climate change and recycling. But there's also social sustainability, which includes topics like equal access, quality education, good health and well-being, no poverty, gender equality. I mean, it's a real rich seam of topics that actually, when you start opening it up, you think, well, these are really interesting subjects to bring into the classroom. They're topics that students want to talk about. And as well as environmental social, there's also economic sustainability, which is linked to topics like decent careers, economic growth, and those areas, particularly at the Business English Special Interest Group, those were particularly appealing because they have a natural fit. And obviously environmental sustainability is being covered in ELT course books quite a bit, but social sustainability is not so much. I mean, materials often shy away from things like equal access and hunger, those kinds of topics, gender. But actually, students want to talk about those things. And if we define that as sustainability, then suddenly it's quite liberating as a materials designer or a teacher, because you're suddenly bringing in all sorts of interesting topics.
So you're basically saying everything is about the SDGs are such a wide term that so many topics already fall under that term.
Well, a lot of topics in course books obviously linked to it, but you're taking a certain sort of angle. So if you have the food unit in a class,
Yeah.
that's
And
fine.
we all do.
We all do. We've all taught the food unit. And it gets a bit dull by the time you've talked about what's your favorite dish, what do you have on menus in your country and all of that.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be more interesting to say, actually, there's a problem with world hunger. Why is it an enormous chunk of people in the world don't have enough food? It doesn't have to be depressing. It can be proactive. And you could say, here's one way in which we might, or go to the students and say, how can you solve this problem? And suddenly you've got something much more interesting going on.
And you're saying students want to talk about this?
Well, I think so. I mean, if you take, there's one that people often, there's the SDG of gender equality.
Yeah.
And when I was faced with that one, I thought, how do we make that kind of engaging for students and so on? And I think storytelling or telling things being difficult for the teachers. So we made, in some material I did, we made a video about women's football. Women's football began in England in the late 1800s, and it grew by about 1920. It became one of the most popular spectator sports in the country. It was 45,000 people would go every Saturday to watch women's football teams. They became real celebrities. Some of them were earning some good money. And then in England, in the 30s, they were just stopped from playing because it was regarded as a man's sport. So the women had to were stopped from playing. And it wasn't until about 1990, the first Women's World Cup again. The US won it in China, and it grew. And of course, now it's massive. There's like over 190 women's national teams around the world.
Yeah.
But they're still earning less than the men. And I just used that video as a kind of an introduction, telling a story about, in a sense, a success story, but why, if it's so popular.
I do love this as an example because, like you said, this is one of those more positive stories.
Yeah.
It's historically, but you can think it through. You can discuss it more elaborately. You can tie it to gender equality and have those in the classroom. But also, you could just focus on the stories and
well, of course, doing it that way, it's full of past tenses as well. So you've always got to remember there's got to be a language point to it. Otherwise, the students are going to say, "Why are we doing this if we're not learning English?"
True.
So it's all past tenses in the video that we made. So you've got to find. So storytelling is a good way in. Positive success stories, role models, people who are out there doing interesting work. It's all good ways of. Also, project-based learning, I think, is good. Giving students project tasks. Could be environmental, could be researching a local company that's sustainable, innovative, and doing a short 2-minute presentation about them.
Yeah.
Different things, but it's really quite rich. I just think we have to redefine what we mean by sustainability, and it sort of stops that groan factor with people thinking, haven't we talked about this enough? You know?
I already recycle. Yes, the planet, the trees.
Yeah, and we've all seen those lessons. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. They exist, but there's a lot more we could be doing with it. Yeah.
I do like that.
Good.
And that must be fun about being a materials writer, to be able to touch on those subjects and find articles like or videos like football.
Yeah, I mean, as a teacher, or if you create your own materials, going and finding material that's going to work and link in with those 17 SDGs is a real challenge, but it actually makes the lessons much more interesting. And you're creating something very real. It's very authentic. It's about the real world, but it doesn't have to be all doom and gloom. There's some great stuff going on out there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I think we know now that climate communication, it doesn't work to focus on the gloom and doom. We need to talk about like the actions, the narratives, and the positivity.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. How much do you allow your students to get angry about a topic in class? Chris Graham, who's written a lot about this, and I did the workshop with him in the Business English group. He talks about, we worry about making the students angry, but can we kind of use that anger in a positive way and make students sort of question and have debates in class? and actually have them leave the classroom really thinking about, really thinking about the topic and thinking, actually, I'm going to go off and do something about it. So it's a fine balance, I think.
Yeah.
And some teachers might be uncomfortable about that, but actually, at least you're getting students to respond in a very authentic kind of way.
True. One last question. So getting students angry could be interesting. Talking about the SDGs, definitely must do. You said you had a new book. Is it, will my students get angry if they're reading your book?
Well, we have a third edition of my book with National Geographic Learning called Life. It's a course book, but National Geographic materials, because we write about exploration and stuff like this, it's usually about sustainability in certain ways anyway. So it seemed like a natural fit to include some lessons on sustainability. The other book I have out is the A to Z of writing language learning materials, which we've self-published, so you can find it on Amazon. And it's to help teachers who want to write their own materials. And we have tips in there on, if you look up, it's all A to Z, there's different letters. We have S's for sustainability, and in there we include tips on how you might deal with sustainability in your materials as well.
Are all chapters letters in the book? Are all the chapters letters in the book?
Yes, we start with A is for aims, we go A is for answer keys, then we go into C is, I can't remember all the different ones.
I'm sure you still remember like the impossible ones, the Q, the Y.
We haven't got a Q in there. Q didn't work. Z or Z, I did. Z is for in the zone. I cheated. And I looked at when writers are in the zone and that we get so absorbed in our writing, and it's the best place to be as a materials writer is when you're in your flow and you forget the rest of the world around you. So that was how we got the Z in.
Smart.
We did cheat because we had X is for extras, and it was extra additional materials to supplement your course book. To be cheated because we wanted
but I think like in the zone, I think that's a good one.
Yeah.
But I'll leave you to judge that. So if you want to see if he actually cheated and which letters were which chapters, check out the books. Material writing, because I do think, and I genuinely believe that we should do more of our own materials, bring that into class, also as a good way to talk about sustainability.
Yeah, and all teachers write their own materials. Even if they have a course book, they supplement it. And yet we never get training as teachers in how to write materials.
No.
I mean, it's not included on teacher training courses.
It really isn't.
It's bizarre, isn't it? If you think how much time we spend doing it.
Which is why you need his book.
Certainly do.
Ready to revolutionize your ELT courses? Introducing ITN Education's captivating videos, the key to transforming English language learning. With our expertly crafted content, we'll accelerate language acquisition like never before. Whether in class or online, our custom-built videos support your learning objectives. Discover ITN Education at IATEFL and elevate your ELT courses today. ITN Education, where learning comes to life.
Hello, and we're back, and I'm joined by the one and only Hugh Della. Hello.
Hello. Thank you very much for inviting me along.
You're more than welcome. How are you? I haven't seen you for a while.
I'm as well as can be expected, given the world we're currently existing in.
The crazy world that we're existing in.
You know, as some of my Ukrainian students say, still alive. So, you know, I can't complain. I'm still alive. I'm here. I'm very much enjoying being back at IATEFL, and yeah, lovely to see everyone again.
It is, isn't it?
It really is.
Hugh, for anyone watching who may not be familiar with you and your work, very quickly, what do you do?
I'm a teacher and a tutor trainer and a course book writer. I've co-authored the 5-level innovation series originally with LTP and then with Heinle Cengage National Geographic Learning. I've co-authored the 6th-level outcome series with NGL, done a couple of books for Pearson, written a methodology book. I run a small bespoke online language school working with very, very high-level students, C1, C2 level students. We do online teacher training. We run summer courses.
This is Lexical Lab, isn't
This
it?
is
Because we
Lexical
had
Lab. Thank
Andy
you.
on yesterday.
Did you?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Andy was saying that you still have some spaces on your courses.
We do still have spaces on the courses. We're running a 2-week course in the summer, kind of called Teaching Lexically, which is looking at how a lexical view of language might play out in the classroom, and if you take a more lexical view of language, what the implications might be for the way you think about teaching vocab, teaching grammar, teaching speaking, teaching reading. And that's a 2-week face-to-face course in North London in July, and we still have a few places.
Oh, that's brilliant. So if anyone's...
check it out.
Yeah, and how can they check it out?
They just go to www.lexicallab.com, and there's a little kind of button to show what we do, what we offer, and it will say face-to-face summer school course, I think, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, or just email me, which is Hugh, Hugh, at lexicallab.com.
Brilliant. There you go. So if you're interested, that's what you need to do.
Thank you.
And at the conference, you're giving a talk, aren't you?
I am. I'm on Friday.
You are, okay. And your talk is very poignantly called Teaching Through the Tears, I think.
Yeah, Teaching Through the Tears, Pedagogy in a Time of War.
And
it's really about my own experiences of the teaching I'm doing and running a language school over the last 3 years since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Because up until the start of the full-scale invasion, I was teaching quite a lot of mixed nationality classes. I've spent a lot of time traveling in Ukraine, in Russia, in Belarus, so they're countries I know quite well. And obviously the war has massively impacted all aspects of what we do. And so what I'm looking at is the way it's impacted the language I teach, the way it impacts the way we think about the students we're trying to recruit, the students we don't want to recruit, how we manage all of that, how we manage classroom interactions, and just kind of trying to look at it from a teaching and a school management point of view in terms of the challenges that it throws up and the way we've tried to deal with that.
will you expect, well, okay, let's maybe rewind a little bit. In terms of things like language, how has the way you speak changed, or you feel that it has had to change?
In terms of the language I end up teaching, it's changed massively. So just if you ask students, how are you? And you chat for 5 minutes at the beginning of class, you end up teaching things like, you know, we were hit by a double tap strike and they took out the hospital. And then when the first responders came, they targeted them. And students will just try and talk about these things as part of their everyday lives. And they don't always necessarily know the vocabulary for it, and they're striving for that vocabulary. And then on top of that, you've got students from outside of Ukraine, say, who are outside of a war zone, who are listening to this and responding to this. And that complicates the interaction sometimes. And it makes some interactions very difficult. Some students obviously don't want to work with other students in groups. We've always tried to not completely close the door on people on the basis of nationality. But at the same time, we want to make sure we don't attract people who we think are going to be problematic or triggering or upsetting. And we want to make sure everyone has a, you know, a meaningful and valuable experience that doesn't add trauma to the people who are already experiencing trauma. It also just little things like, you know, asking, how are you? It becomes very, very difficult. There's a famous Ukrainian meme which is going around, which is, how are you? And there's about 20 sentences all crossed out in black. And then at the bottom it says, I'm fine, thanks, and you? And it's often like that. It's kind of, what do you even want me to say in answer to this question? And I'm also talking about how, as a course book writer, it's interesting because we're told a lot of things can't go in course books because they might be triggering. But actually, when you're dealing with people who've been through very traumatic situations, almost anything can lead to conversations about things that have been traumatic for them. So one of the little things I'm talking about is people who, we were talking about the last thing you bought, right? A really innocent kind of question, which course books are full of. One student was talking about how her flat had been blown up and she had to leave Ukraine with literally nothing, you know, an emergency bag. She ended up in Italy. And to begin with, she was very traumatized by it. Then she reached a stage of thinking that she actually didn't need as much as she thought she did, and there was a kind of liberation to not owning many possessions. And then they had a cold winter, and she spent €300 on a winter coat, and then she felt guilty because she thought she should have been donating the money, and then she thought, actually, no, it's okay, I'm allowed to have a new coat.
Wow.
And this all came out
Yeah.
while she was talking about what was the last thing you bought, you know. And it's like, anyway, what about you? It's like, don't know, a cup of coffee in the break. And so this idea that you can escape trauma by asking mundane questions or innocent questions, I just think is a misnomer. And as teachers, more and more teachers are going to be working with people who have been through traumatic situations because of the way the world is at the moment. And there's quite a few teachers here from Gaza and from Ukraine talking about their experiences of like trauma-informed teaching. I'm sure they'd much rather not be talking about these things. I'm sure they'd rather be talking about teaching vocab or something. But I think as teachers, we need to be thinking about how we're responding to people who've been through these kind of experiences and how we want to approach that in our own pedagogy.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm talking about, I guess.
Okay.
And
Had you anticipated any of this, that you'd have to perhaps change your behaviour or think about things prior to all this happening?
No.
I suppose you don't, do you?
No, you don't, because you don't know whether, you know, I guess what I've always done as a teacher, not always, but since I've been a good teacher, I'd like to think I am. Since I've been teaching in a way that I enjoy and that I think students enjoy more, I've always been interested in helping students to learn the language that words their own worlds, you know, helping students learn language that they need to express their own realities. And obviously when you're doing that, sometimes quite traumatic stories sometimes emerge. People pick up on weird things like, you know, I thought I was going to die, and then they have all these mad stories that come up from them. And so I've always been able to do that and been aware of the fact that students often have these stories with them, but I obviously wasn't anticipating this particular set of problems or language to sort of emerge and then have how to deal with it all. So no, but I think having learned how to be responsive to dealing with emergent language, which I notice is one of the themes that I'm really pleased to see is quite dominant at the conference at the moment. Having learned how to do that, in a way, it makes you more prepared to, more able to be able to deal with things when they come up. But it's also learning how to do that, not only as a language teacher, but also as a human being, because sometimes students are telling you horrific things and you have to respond in a human way whilst also thinking at the same time about what language do I teach in response to this. And that kind of tightrope of language teacher, empathetic human being, and flip-flopping between those two things it's demanding and it's quite draining. And I mean, in many ways, I've found this kind of teaching the last 3 years, but also just kind of just emotionally exhausting, you know. Come out of classes just kind of going, oh God, that was a really heavy lesson. And then you have a cup of coffee and you know, use the loo, and then you go on to your next class. Morning, you know, and that's what teachers do, I guess. We all do that in various different ways. But it's been more like that the last 3 years for me than it had previously been. Yeah.
Okay, so that's what the audience can look forward to. You're talking.
That's what I'm talking about. You know, full of jokes and laughs.
Absolutely. Oh no, knowing you, I'm sure it's going to be very engaging. And
there's the occasional little laugh, hopefully thrown in there as well, because you know, the absurdity and insanity of the world is in itself sometimes grimly comic.
You've got to laugh, otherwise we've got nothing left, have we?
There you go.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, well, listen, I hope that goes really, really well for
Thank you.
What else have you been up to?
So one other little thing I've been up to is I've just got hold of this myself today, as it happens, which is a new book I've written called Your Top 50 English Questions Answered. And basically what this was, it's published by Ways Goose Press, who also did a thing we wrote called Grammar Nonsense and What to Do About It, run by Dorothy Zemak. And I have a Facebook group called English Questions Answered. And it's basically a space where anyone can ask questions about how language works, things they've come across that are confusing for them. And over the years, I've been running it about 8 years now, certain questions keep coming back time and time again. So things like, what's the difference between like to do and like doing? And so I've spent a lot of time thinking about these common questions and having conversations with teachers about them, and also thinking about what I would say to students about them. And so what the book is it just collects together 50 questions that we've been asked repeatedly. So things like, is it if I were a rich man or if I was a rich man? Okay. Why do memes sometimes say I be like? You know, what's the difference between at the end, by the end, and in the end? And, you know, I think a lot of teachers will recognize these as, oh, yes, that old chestnut. I've been asked that hundreds of times. So it's really just, it's quite conversational. It's quite chatty. And if you don't like me and my tone of voice, you'll probably find it a profoundly annoying book.
It's got Andy's voice in it as well. So.
Yeah. To be fair, this one was more me, and the grammar one was much more Andrew. So,
Right.
you know, but we're a writing team. So, and yeah, it's just an attempt to explore commonly asked questions and to try to provide answers to those questions that might be useful to teachers to take into their own classrooms and to help them think more clearly
this is
about
fantastic
things.
because we do get asked these questions all of the time.
Yeah.
And I think teachers as well, especially, I don't know whether or not there's any other profession where we have to, like, English language teachers have to keep educating themselves about language. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we do. And I think it's funny because a lot of non-native think that's somehow exclusive to being a non-native speaker,
at
but my
all.
God, no.
No.
I mean, you know what it's like as well as a bilingual teacher yourself. You're always getting asked questions about your own mother tongue that even if you've been teaching, 31 years, since 1842, you will not have thought about before. And I mean, I got asked one recently about what's the difference between a plot, a ploy, and a ruse. A ploy and a ruse.
What
And
did
you
you
just kind
say?
of go,
Yeah, I know.
that's a very good question that I've never been asked before. I need time to think about that. And you go away and think about it, and you ask on the English questions answer group, and you digest the answers, and you look at corpora. And in a way, that's part of what's lovely about our job, I think, is not only are you constantly thinking about the people you're working with and the psychology and the interaction and the how to make learning more meaningful and how to make language stick, you're also always thinking about the subject material that you're teaching and how to get better at dealing with it and explaining it and presenting that knowledge that you've accumulated over the years to your students in ways that are relevant and at their level. And then sometimes you'll find you're sitting on the sofa on a Sunday night with a glass of wine in your hand, watching Netflix, trying to unwind, and they'll use a word and you're kind of go, that's it. Get your pen out and write it down. And my wife's just looking at me kind of going like, you never bloody
Stop.
relax. Stop, basically, yeah. But it's always sort of ticking away in your head, that kind of thinking about language. But
Hazard of the job.
hazard of the job.
That's
Bless
exactly
it.
what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, again, so best of luck with this as well.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully,
It
yeah,
is
this
available at the conference for those of you watching here.
Brilliant. And for anyone who might be here that would like to go to your talk,
It's on Friday, and it's straight after the opening plenary, and I believe it's in Pentland.
Perfect.
And it's a big room, which is scary if it's only half full. So if you are watching this and you're tempted, please come along to make me feel like I'm not talking to
makes
no
you
one in
feel
a
better,
vast
yeah.
empty room.
There you go. I'm sure that'll work. I'll be there. Oh, all right. Well, it's lovely to see
Thank
you.
you. Lovely to
Enjoy
see
the
you
rest
too.
of the conference, and take care. All the best.
Thank you very much.
Did you know the Edinburgh Fringe Festival is the largest arts festival in the world? Every August, the city comes alive with creativity. Featuring thousands of performances, from comedy and theatre to dance and music, there's something for everyone. The streets are filled with performers, creating an electric atmosphere that's truly one of a kind. Experience the magic of the Fringe and discover why artists and audiences flock to Edinburgh every year.
And I'm back here with Jenny from Express Publishing. Jenny, can you introduce yourself, please, to the people watching from home?
Hello, I'm Jenny Dooley. I'm the president of Express Publishing and one of the main authors of Express Publishing, and I'm happy to be in another IATEFL.
And we're going to talk about Express Publishing. We're mostly going to talk about English language teaching and the future of English language teaching. What are the biggest trends shaping English language teaching today?
There are lots of trends. I can tell you from my experience, from my travels, because I come across many teachers from all over the world. A lot of the things I hear mainly in Europe, but it's starting to spread out in the rest of the world too, is making sure that the students have autonomy and they're training with life skills, making sure that they're becoming more and more and more independent.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say the obvious, which is AI, which is AI. This is, I mean, just take a look around the exhibitions and take a look around the convention. 99% of the talks are about AI
Yeah.
nowadays. That is also a huge trend, but we see a lot of independence too. And I think that's why AI has come into play, because teachers want students to become more and more independent.
True. And as you said, AI is going to be a massive help in that, also in personalizing learning experiences.
Yes, of course. The thing is that there are two ways. If you want to personalize learning experiences using AI, you can go in either of the two ways. As a teacher, you might have 1, 2, 20, 70, depending how many students you're teaching. So you can sit down and start custom making using lots of different AI tools. And there are a lot of tools out there. I use them too. I mean, I get inspiration from some of them too. But you can either custom make according to the needs of each of your students, material, tasks, activities, whatever you want to call them, images, whatever, for each and every one of your students, or you can choose to use material which is designed using adaptive learning technology, which is personalized learning, which is what we have in DigiPlus, in Express Publishing.
And why should we do that?
Because by using our AI digitalized personalized experience, our personalized platform, let me put it to you like that. Okay, think about it like that. Imagine a classroom where every student has their own needs. This is very much a reality, okay?
I'm afraid so, yeah.
Some students are better at speaking, some students are better at writing, some students learn faster, some students learn slower, some students want to hear things twice, some students want to speed up the process because they've got, faster way of thinking. So by using this adaptive learning technology and by using this kind of AI, the AI profiles the students in a safe environment. It's not an open AI. So it profiles the students in a safe environment, and that helps the students practice with the tasks that it feeds the students based on the student's own needs. Not taking into account a general syllabus or, generic things that the teachers, by nature, we say, okay, we teach at this level, we have to teach on this stuff, but the system kind of, gives it like a medical almost diagnosis to the student. So it can identify what are the strengths and what are the weaknesses. And the system focuses on weaknesses where the student needs more practice. So
that sounds brilliant.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the fears with AI is safety. And also if I, as a teacher, have to make materials for everybody, AI can help me, but it's still a lot of work. Whereas an adaptive program makes my work easier and it's safe and better for the students.
It makes your work almost zero because all you have to do is monitor. The system does everything for you. Whereas in the other case, road number 1, as I told you, you need to work
hard,
3 times harder than you currently do. Yeah.
Well, hard work brings me to my next question. What kind of challenges do you think teachers are facing in ELT today?
Oh, there are many, many challenges. I'll tell you one of the challenges I hear worldwide, especially in state school teachers, time. I don't know why, but ministries all around the world seem to be cutting down the time that language is taught in schools.
Yeah.
They're taking it in less and less and less years, as if somehow we have a magic tool that 5 years ago didn't exist, and now we can use this magic tool and kind of, I don't know, inject knowledge to the student's brain in like 45 minutes, and that's it. No. So that is one of the major issues. Another major issue that I have again heard from every country, from every teacher, is keeping students motivated. And that is becoming more and more loud because in the kind of world that we live in, where students are exposed in so much digital material, they're exposed to so much social media, they're exposed to so many different kind of things that they see around them, keeping them in class and telling them, okay, let's open the books now and do exercises. They're like, Right. No.
It's understandable. Like if you're used to having input all over, and suddenly you just have to look at a page that's not moving, that's not changing, that doesn't have updates and messages.
So what's the answer to that? The answer to that is to make sure you go with the trends. Going with the trends doesn't mean, okay, tell your students, get out your mobile phones and start using social media in class. No, by no means. No. In many countries, this is not allowed anyway. The ministers of education are shutting that down anyway. But making sure that the language lesson becomes more and more engaging for the students. And when I say engaging, it doesn't mean fill in gaps and just look at words and look at pictures and describe them and that's it. Do some research, voice your opinion, group work, mediation, lots of different activities where the students are kept active during the class, not just your traditional way of teaching.
So you mentioned a couple, but I think everybody watching this is going to want to know, like, we want to motivate our students. You said group activity is one way to do that.
Group activities, research techniques, presentations, life skill type of activities, mediation for sure. Any kind of activity that doesn't involve the student thinking, okay, I have to use this word, I have to use this grammar, I have to put it in a sentence, because then learning becomes drudgery. Students need to start feeling that learning, the language exists here, here, and here. Drama.
Yeah.
Role plays, anything, just get them out of the book.
Yeah.
I sell books, okay? And what I say kind of contradicts what I do, but the way I write my books is designed exactly like that, to make sure that students don't sit still being bored out of their heads on a desk.
Yeah.
They are engaged in the class, they're engaged in the lesson, they move, they act, they do lots of different things, they speak, they participate.
So, as if I understand you correctly, you're saying challenges that teachers these days are faced with have to do with time, have to do with motivation, but well-written
And culture.
books and assignments can really help with this.
Another challenge is culture. We as educators face that. We know that as publishers, but now, because we have a lot of movement from a lot of countries, which in the same classroom you might have different cultures, you might also face cultural issues within your class, sensitivities, inclusivity issues. So that's another thing which is starting to grow too.
But you're saying a good book can help with all of these things. Well-written assignments, being smart about how you approach this.
A good book and a good teacher, how to be able to handle and manipulate that. So it works both ways, yeah.
Good book and a good teacher. Now, I think if I recall my first days teaching, I didn't feel like a good teacher yet. Do you have tips for any starting teachers on how to, start their ELT career?
Funny you should say that, because one of the seminars I've been delivering to some of my colleagues is the 5 stages of what the teacher, the steps basically that the teacher goes through, which I've been through it myself too, okay? The first day, my first lesson, I was like shaking, like a fish out of water, literally, okay?
Did they notice?
Yes, they did. The first time they did. But then they loved me later on, The thing is that there's no manual. You graduate from university, but there's no manual telling you, okay, you have to go into class and do this and do that. Yes, they give you the basics. Yes, they teach you about methodology. Yes, you do a little bit about child psychology, but there's no step 1. There's no teacher's guide to guide the teachers. Let's put it to you like this. So at the same time, the only advice I can give to educators, and I urge educators worldwide to do that, conventions, seminars, talks. Just because we graduated from a university doesn't mean we know everything. We know nothing. Language, education keeps fluctuating. Methodology changes. Just because we learned something 20 years ago, it's not relevant today.
Oh, no.
So we have to keep updating ourselves. We have to keep learning new things. We have to exchange ideas and opinions with other people, with other colleagues, networking.
True.
So that helps tremendously, in my opinion.
So a good tip for starting teachers is
to go to IATEFL.
Come to IATEFL.
Yeah, for sure.
But any other conference, any other seminar, anything you can get your hands on, basically, that can help you, that will help you interact with other colleagues, so you can learn from each other and learn from current issues. You said there were 5 stages. that you discuss in your seminar?
Yeah.
Can I hear them? Like, I've been there. I want to know.
I'm going to tell you the two. It goes from the rookie to the overconfident.
Yeah,
The rookie is the one who is like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's happening.
we've been there.
Yeah, we've all been there. The overconfident is, I know what I'm doing, so I'm just going to go and deliver my lesson, which is the worst case scenario. So the best case scenario is somewhere in between. And this I'm going to keep because it's going to take too long to discuss all the stages for another interview, maybe. Yeah.
Another one. I'll
Yeah.
hold you to that.
All right.
But that is a good one to keep in mind. I think that we go from I don't know anything to insecure, basically, and questioning everything to, nah, I don't need to prepare my classes.
Absolutely.
I'll go home, which never happens in education. But still, we feel like we can do it without preparation. And if we feel like we can't learn, we don't.
We fail.
Yeah.
It's difficult because you never know. Each class, each student is different from the other. You never know what might happen. So preparation is key.
Half-confident, half nervous is the best combination.
Absolutely.
Any books or materials you're working on at the moment?
Oh, well, I've just completed my new series for secondary level, which is called For Minds, which is a fantastic series. And I'm launching a new series next year, which is for primary level, which is called Happy Tunes. And this is going to be a fantastic series. It has a lot of 3D animation. It has a lot of wonderful illustrations for young learners. It has a lot of values. I'm going to say that. Okay, I'm not trying to advertise, but I know that this is a series that 99% of the educators are talking today, adolescents. Okay, now when everybody watched this series, my family watched the series, my kid watched the series, they were like, Mom, you have to see this. I'm like, okay, I'm not surprised. I've done the research. I know that this is what's happening. That's exactly why I try to bring values back to my material, to inspire students, to not to make them feel pessimistic and negative, to try to see the positive ways of life.
Because I was going to ask you values, like what does a good method or good course book need? And you're saying values. All the research supports.
Values is anything that teaches you right from wrong. Values is anything that helps you to prioritize things. We know what values are. You get on a bus, you see an old lady, it's polite to stand up so she can sit down.
Yeah,
That's
it is.
values.
Yes.
Politeness, kindness, generosity, that's values. It's common. So we have to get them back into values. Yeah.
I love that. Other than values, because I do feel that we need to teach our students that. We also need to teach them English. What should be in a good course book? What should starting teachers focus on if they're looking at course books? What's important when it comes to English language teaching?
As I told you, my firm belief, as I told you earlier, is that material that makes sure that the students are kept engaged. And when I say engaged, I don't mean just filling in gaps and doing, the traditional tasks. Material where even the young ones, they can create a picture, they can do show and tell, anything that will inspire learners, anything that will motivate learners. Of course, we need the basics. Of course, we have to teach them language because without words, you can't even make sentences. Of course, we have to teach them that, but not just focus on that. Don't just teach to the test. This is what I've been trying to do with my teams, with my editors now. All the new series that we're designing from now on, they're not teaching to the test. We don't just want the students to be prepared to pass exams. We want the students to be able to use the language for whatever the situation, for traveling, for studying, for, I don't know, living abroad, for whatever.
Yeah.
So anything from a very young age to, I don't know, C2 level, let's say, we need to make sure that the students are interested. The material is inviting for them, engaging for them, triggering, inspiring, like, as you would read a magazine kind of thing. Yeah, just like that.
But magazines we read for fun, and that's what we should aim for. You're saying
Shouldn't
your
education
students,
be fun
that
too?
they think, yes, it's finally those 45 minutes of English each week, and I want to read that book and I want to learn English.
Yeah.
Any last tips for anyone watching from home?
Last tips. I don't know. Yes, I do have one tip. All educators are asking for technology. There is sometimes an issue when it comes to technology because in some countries, maybe they need the technology, but maybe they don't have the resources. They might not have the computers or the finances to be able to access it. But those who do, when you ask for it, please use it. don't just ask for all the publishers to create the technology and then don't use it. Because if you don't use it, you don't know if it works. So yeah, that's one of the tips I would like to give.
Good one, and good to get off your chest, I think.
Yes.
And good for us to hear also. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure being here again. Thank you. I'll see you next year in Brighton.
Good afternoon, and welcome to, Anka's Book Club. So famous that Robert Burns actually has a whole night in November dedicated to him, Burns Night. Now, Robert Burns was born in 1759. He was a very, very productive poet. And even though he never saw the wealth in his life, even though he died at 37, he leaves a legacy that is quite big. Now, as much as I'd love to talk about Burns and Burns Night for hours, really, I wanted to also talk about two other poets, Wilfred Owen and Siegfried Sassoon. Now, World War I produced a lot of poets, poets who went to war, but also the war inspiring certain men to write poems, to give expression to the traumatic things they'd seen and done. Now, once someone got injured, either shell-shocked, traumatized, or physically injured, they were sent to hospitals to recover before being shipped back to continue fighting. Now, it is in one of those hospitals here in Edinburgh that Wilfred Owen and Siegfried Sassoon actually met up. And it was Siegfried Sassoon that told Wilfred Owen to keep up writing, that his work was definitely good enough to be published. And Siegfried Sassoon himself was inspired by his friendship with Wilfred Owen and kept writing. Now, Siegfried Sassoon survived the war and kept writing numerous biographies as well as poems. Wilfred Owen unfortunately did not survive the war, but still, it's good to know that the hospital where they met, where these two men became friends, where they inspired each other to keep writing, is actually still here in Edinburgh. It's no longer a hospital, but it is a university building now, and they still have the original manuscripts and some of their works there.
Hello again. So I hope you've enjoyed the IATEFL live show, day 2, live from the IATEFL conference. But of course, now I have got a treat for you, because as I said before, this show is not only about ELT, it's about the culture, it's about the people. And I have got a person here that you probably know, that you probably might have heard of. So I'm very happy to have Jeremy Harmer with me. Hello, Jeremy.
Hello there.
Welcome to our live show.
Thank you very much. It's an absolute privilege to be here.
Jeremy, we know your work about on ELT, and we know that you're an ELT author, a trainer, a practitioner in general. What brings you to IATEFL?
Well, 2 or 3 things. Yesterday I presented, and I did a talk called When We Sing Together, based on a song I write, because I'm a musician as well as a teacher and a trainer and a writer. And what the talk was about the words of the song go, when we sing together, we will never be alone. And it was about how it's important it is to build communities in classrooms in a time, especially with kids and young boys, especially when alienation is such a potentially difficult topic. And so I based it around a song, and we did a lot of music in it because I love mixing music and teaching. Look, teaching has been my whole life, but my parents bought me my first guitar when I was 11. So that's also been part of my whole life. So that was the first reason that I was here. The second reason is to see so many good friends that I have here in this community. And the third reason was my favorite occupation of IATEFL, because for many years I have run the IATEFL Music Night, which is this evening as it happens, today, Wednesday, at 8:15. And what we do in that evening is we invite anyone in IATEFL who wants to come along and sing a song. It can be with a guitar or unaccompanied or whatever, and doesn't matter what kind of song. They can sing in English, in Kazakh, in it doesn't matter. because the object is just to make music together, because when we sing together, we will never be alone. And of course, I'll sing it in that as well, because I'm a singer, songwriter, and a guitarist, and I play in symphony orchestras on the viola and stuff like that. So that's what I'm doing here, and mainly just coming to what is my big annual family party.
That's fantastic, Jeremy. Now, I probably have shared with you before, but I want to share this memory with the audience as well. Back in 2019, we were together in Liverpool in the music night.
Yes, indeed.
And that music night truly made me cry, because when you showed the song and the lyrics to us, it was an incredible experience. What inspired you to write the song, and generally, what inspires you to write the song?
That song was inspired originally by some attitudes in my country, but also across the rest of the world, to immigration. It's a major issue in the world, but it's been a major issue for the last 20,000 years. People move. And when you have wars and drought and famine, people move. And to me, the mark of a civilized society is how we deal with the people who move. It presents problems. Of course it does. So I wrote a song about the issues between my life and their life. And my life has been a life of absolute privilege, where I have been welcomed all over the world, been allowed to go in and meet teachers and do talks and all this kind of thing. And that contrasts fundamentally with the lives of hundreds of thousands of other people who are not welcomed. And that song, although I'm not going to sing that song now, but that song says, "Come in here, you're welcome. Sit yourselves down. We'll keep you safe from danger. You can call this place your home, because when we sing together, we will never be alone." Now, my contention is that the world of global English language teaching is the world that needs to be the big standard bearer for that sentiment. And we know this because we have teachers right now in 2025, and it shames the world, who are suffering appalling situations. Now, before we get very political and too sad, I think that what English language teaching does, and an international gathering like this, is the great glory and beauty of international community, and the sharing that goes on here, the knowledge that teachers in Pakistan have pretty much the same issues and as teachers in Buenos Aires, as teachers in Tokyo, as teachers in Saudi Arabia, or whatever. It doesn't really matter. We're all in this together, you know, and that's why this conference is so special.
Absolutely agree. Jeremy, I have got one last question for you, because you mentioned that we are in 2025, and do you think that music connects people and the current generations the way that it used to in the past?
That may be outside the scope of an interview of this length. Yes, I think so. I think, for example, everyone feels very awkward about Russia at the moment because of the geopolitical situation. But you can't feel difficult about Russian music. Some of it is beautiful. And it doesn't matter whether it's Russian folk music or Tchaikovsky or Balakirev or any of these people, or for heaven's sake, Shostakovich and stuff. You know, I mean, why would you? And I'm sorry to keep going back to that kind of thing, but yes, I do. Tonight at the music night, we will have people from cultures all around the world, and they will be as one. Now, I'm going to sing you a song, if that's all right with you.
Absolutely.
And this song, I chose it specially, and I'm going to sing it tonight. And if you don't mind, I'll tell a little story. My first wife is a teacher of English as a second language, and she lived, as I did, in a street called Rustat Road in Cambridge. One night, a taxi was waiting for me when I flew into Heathrow. And the guy had my name up on a card, And so we got into the car and we started talking. A lovely looking man, very smartly dressed and things like that. And we started talking. And then eventually I said, I hope you don't mind, but do you mind if I ask where your accent is from? And that's when he told me his story. He came from Afghanistan. He had to get out. This was in the first days, the first rule of Taliban. He had to get out. He was under threat. So he went out across the mountains, nearly died of cold and exposure. Then he got down into another country where he was severely beaten up by the police and nearly died. He managed to get out of that. Then he and a number of other migrants were in a car, and on the way through some more mountains, some bandits shot at them and they shot out all their wheels, but the driver kept going on the wheel rims and he got through that. Finally, he got to the English Channel. He stowed away in the back of a lorry, an illegal immigrant. But what else was he supposed to do? And he finally pitched out in the middle of Cambridge on a cold March night. He had a T-shirt and jeans and almost nothing else. And through the kindness of strangers, he ended up being granted asylum. He got married, he has kids. He's exactly the kind of person you would want in any society. And it was just the most memorable cab drive I've ever had. And at the end of it, I said, because I was a bit shattered and I had to say something. I said, "Oh, well, where do you live?" He said, "Well, I live in Cambridge." I said, and that's why this is so appropriate now. I said, "Oh, where did you live?" He said, "I live in Flamsteed Road." And I said, "Oh, I used to live round the corner in Rustat Road." To which he replied, "What number?" And I said, "Number 8. And his reply was, "Oh my God, Anita, my teacher, she saved my life." And I'm sort of getting very emotional about it now. And I told that story when I spoke 2 years ago to the ESOL SIG here, to remind ESOL teachers, the great unsung heroes of our profession, how their work is fundamentally important. And I wrote a song about it. And I'm going to sing it. I won't sing all of it. I'll sing a little bit of it. And it's got a chorus which goes, "This is coming through all right. You've got to hold on to hope. It's the song that drives us on. You've got to hold on to the future. It's the place where we belong. You've got to hold on to love. You know you can find it everywhere. There are people who lie and people who hate, but there are many more, thousands more who care." I flew in from miles away, across the wild Pacific Sea. Plane touched down on friendly earth, that's the place I wanted to be. He was standing there, waiting, the sign held up with my name. So I said hello and we walked out to his car and we set out on the journey home. And we started to talk, you know, the way you do, about the traffic and the football scores. Then I asked him, "Do you mind, but where's your accent from?" And that's when he told me more. And I sat in the back and listened to his tale. Now I think about it almost every day. For he taught me about courage and he taught me about faith. And now I try and live that way. 'Cause you've gotta hold on to hope. It's the song that drives us on. You've gotta hold on to the future. It's the place where we belong. You've gotta hold on to love. You know you can find it everywhere. Well, there are people who lie and people who hate, but there are many more, thousands more who care. Got beaten up to death by the Turkish police and then bandits
opened fire on his car. Somehow he made it through, and then he just kept on walking. He couldn't tell me how far. He missed his family and friends, but he just kept on walking till he came at last to the shore. And he looked across the sea to the land of promise. That's the land he'd been searching for. And you've got to hold on to hope. It's the song that drives us on. You've got to hold on to the future. It's the place where we belong. You've got to hold on to hope. You know you can find it everywhere. There are people who lie, people who hate, but there are many more, thousands more who care. And he said, oh, you know my teacher, she taught me when I was alone. She taught me how to speak, and she held my hand, and she made me feel at home. And the people who fought to let me stay, well, I think about them every day. And I do my best and I do it for them, and I get to watch my children. I get to watch my children play. 'Cause I had to hold on to hope. It was the song that drove me on. I had to hold on to the future. It was the place I knew I belonged. I had to hold on to love. You know I found it most everywhere. Yeah, there's some people who lied and some people who hate, but there were many more, thousands more who care. You know you've got to hold on to hope. It's the song that drives us on. You've got to hold on to the future. It's the place where we belong. You've got to hold on to love. You know you can find it everywhere. Well, some people, they were haters and some people lied, but there were many more, thousands more who care. Thank you.
Jeremy, first of all, thank you very much for sharing his story. I'm really sorry. I'm very moved by the song. It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful message. Holding on to hope, holding on to love. It's a very important message, and thank you so much.
Thank you. And you know, when we were talking about it, I was nearly in tears. But singing about it is a lot easier for me because then you have to concentrate on the singing. Anyway, there we are. That's a song called "Hold On to Hope," and I think for this conference, it's absolutely appropriate.
Jeremy, thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to the music night, and it's always a pleasure to listen to your music.
Thank you, Joy.
Thank you so very much. So, to the people watching us from home, thank you very much for joining us. I cannot even describe what happened here. We had an audience, so it was really beautiful. So thank you very much. We will close the show after a very short ad and another little surprise. Thank you very much, everybody.
Ready to revolutionize your ELT courses? Introducing ITN Education's captivating videos, the key to transforming English language learning. With our expertly crafted content, we'll accelerate language acquisition like never before. Whether in class or online, our custom-built videos support your learning objectives. Discover ITN Education at IATEFL and elevate your ELT courses today. ITN Education, where learning comes to life.
And as promised, of course, my goodness, I'm still in tears. Asel, hello.
Hello, hello.
Asel, so before I introduce you to Asel, I think that we both teared away a little bit, didn't
Exactly.
we?
Definitely. Yeah, I was moved by tears or 2 tears by Jeremy's performance. Yeah, really beautiful performance.
Asel, first of all, for the people watching us from home, can you please introduce yourself and tell us what brings you to the IATEFL conference?
Well, my name is Asilbe Batyrova. I'm from Central Asia, Kazakhstan, beautiful city in the southeast of Kazakhstan, Almaty. And I represent distributor of Oxford University Press in Kazakhstan, and that is Interpress company. It's my first time actually in IATEFL, first time in Edinburgh, and I'm really very excited to be here in IATEFL, meeting so many like-minded professionals, taking part in this wonderful conference, because teachers come here to share their expertise, their knowledge. As they say, sharing is caring.
Absolutely. Now, as a first timer at the conference, what is one thing that has stayed with you so far?
One thing, it's excitement. Excitement, when I wake up in the morning, I'm excited. When I get ready for the conference, getting dressed, I'm excited. Approaching the venue, I'm excited. It's excitement all the time. It's excitement. Beautiful place, beautiful people all around. So
Absolutely. One thing that always stays with me is meeting new people like you, because we met over breakfast.
exactly, Georgia. Yeah, I saw you shining like a sun. I saw you that being very, open, approachable person, smiling, friendly. Yes, and thank you for inviting me actually.
So
to IATEFL Life.
Your story really grabbed my attention, and I said, I need to have Asel on the show.
Oh, thank you so much.
So, Asel, you're joining the music night.
Yeah, I'm going to.
And you've told me an interesting fact about you, that you sing.
Yes, I love singing, and I think I have this gift from my mom because she also loves singing. The thing is that we never actually attended a professional musical school, vocal school. I just have this voice, and I started singing. I remember since 6th grade on the stage at school. I was really, happy to perform. I like the stage. I love English, and I perform only in English.
Brilliant.
So since grade 6, yeah.
Do you also perform for your students?
For the students, yeah. Actually, I use songs for my ELT classes, and my students do love singing. And can I hear a little bit advertise English file? Because I represent Oxford University Press. An English file teacher's guide is full of songs with activities targeting different grammar points. And I think it's fun to use songs in the classroom because most people love music. Most people love singing. So it's learning English through entertainment.
Fantastic. What song are you going to sing for us tonight for the closing of the show?
For the closing of the show, I'm going to sing a very beautiful song by Frankie Valli, Too Good to Be True.
Oh, fantastic. Hit it off. Let's go for it.
Okay. Is the microphone
working?
All
yours.
Okay. You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off of you. You'd be like heaven to touch. I wanna hold you so much. At long last, love has arrived. And I thank God I'm alive. You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off of you. Pardon the way that I stare. There's nothing else to compare. The sight of you leaves me weak. There are no words left to speak. But if you feel like I feel, please let me know that it's real. You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off of you. Ba-da, 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 ba-ba, ba-da, 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 ba-ba-da, ba-da, 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 ba-ba, ba-da, ba-da, ba. I love you, baby, and if it's quite alright, I need you, baby, to warm a lonely night. I need you, baby. Trust in me when I say, oh, pretty baby, don't let me down, I pray. Oh, pretty baby, just let me down and stay, and let me love you, baby. Let me love you.
Awesome. Thank you so very
My
much.
pleasure.
So,
I got so nervous and a little bit excited. So,
so if there's one thing about IATEFL, not only the conference, but also our digital community here, the community that we have online, is that we are very welcoming. So everyone is welcome, and you've done a fantastic job.
Thank you.
So join us from home to say thank you to both Jeremy and Asel for bringing the music aspect to our show. And with this, of course, we're saying goodbye for today. We will be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. UK time with more speakers for the conference, more voices, and of course, you from the online world, from many, many, many countries. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you tomorrow. Enjoy your day, everybody, or your night. See you tomorrow.